They tried to stop us just a couple of seconds ago, but they couldn't. So I just flipped them the bird, so just so you know.
That's fine. No, any victory is a victory.
Yeah, so
I like your style, Omar.
This is a victory for us. They tried to stop us, but they couldn't because I had a backup.
Good.
This is what I was saying. I'm prepared because this type of stuff happens to us all the time, not only here on my show, but also my colleagues that I work with, like Clarence Mitchell at Closer Encounters. One time he had a stream about sound and vibration, and it was about disclosure, the ET disclosure about Tom DeLonge. And his video just up and disappeared altogether. It's happened to my other friend, Leonard O'Neill at Orion Rising, where his streams have been shut down. Same thing with me. My streams have been shut down. It's one of the reasons why I don't directly stream to Facebook. I use platforms like the ones that we're using here tonight with Zoom, because we're streaming privately, but we're choosing to share to Facebook and YouTube and etc. All the other ones. So they can shut us down all they want, but our interview will go on, and we'll just upload the entire version later on, and we will have victory, and they won't.
There is an ancient Greek analogy of the chimera. Have you heard of it?
I may be
chimera or chimera? The animal with 7 heads, that every time you cut a head off, another head reappears. So you can try and cut its head off all the time, but it will still keep reappearing. And the more you attack it, the more heads it will grow.
Yes.
So that's your battle with the media.
Yes. I've heard that. That for a lot of people would say that's a myth, but in my opinion, I don't think it's a myth. We like to make everything a myth that is in the old world here in the West, and everything that we do here is a fact, but everything else is a myth, even if it's thousands of years old. Practice, it's still a myth. So let me jump over here to Facebook really quickly, sir, and let me have a quick boo to make sure everything's happening, and it appears that we're live. So we'll go like this, and let me just quickly share the screen, because I'd like to start off with something. This is what I'd like to start with. There we are, and I believe we are. Okay, so we are 4 minutes behind. That's fine. The video has been shared, and people are rolling in, and people are watching. Welcome, everyone. Just bear with us. We'll get the show started here for you guys here right away. You guys might hear my voice because I'm not logging into the app to join you guys in the chat room. All right, so we'll get the show going here. All right, everyone, welcome. Thank you very much for joining us here again this evening on Watchers Talk. Whew, running out of breath. I'm just at the tail end of my flu, so I'm a little bit stuffed up. Welcome. Thank you for joining us here at Watchers Talk. My name is Omar, and I am your host for the next couple hours anyhow this evening from British Columbia, Canada. I just want to give a quick some love out. I want to throw some love out to Clarence Mitchell from Closer Encounters, who helped me host our day-long webinar on March 20th on spring equinox. So thank you very much, Clarence. It was a pleasure co-hosting the event with you all day. We had wonderful speakers all day long. The videos are here on Facebook, so you're welcome to go through them, comment on them, and you can tag us. We can come in, answer any questions for you. Even the speakers, you can tag them, and they can come in and answer any questions that you may have. So with that being said, said, you guys are probably wondering, like, what's this on the screen? Well, this is Egypt, the Hidden Treasure Tour, which is coming up, I believe, in November 2018, which is led by Mimo Tours and our very, very good friend, Ildi Budai from Australia, and Journeys Through Egypt. So check out that page for sure. Anyways, I just want to let you guys see this so that it gets, we plan to see it anyhow, and this PDF will be available for you guys here probably during the show, because I was waiting to release this at one of these types of shows. But here it is, and you guys are more than welcome to go through this and look up mimotours.com to book your tour. You guys don't want to miss this out. Ellie is damn near pretty much is an Egyptologist. She's been to Egypt like hundreds of times. Well, I wouldn't say hundreds of times. I'm just exaggerating now. But she's been there enough times to know what she's talking about. You guys may know that because she's done webinars and lectures and talks here on Watchers Talk right from the beginning. So for the past 2 years. So check this out. And now I will introduce my next guest that we have. And it's a pleasure to have George Mitrovic from Australia. Now, he is a author, a lecturer, a researcher, an avid reader, and obviously a writer. He's got many, 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 many books, and some of those books we are going to talk about here tonight. And this is right up our alley, so I'm just going to kick back and just learn as much as you guys are going to learn, and share this stream. Please, please, please share this stream. You know how it is, right? We share once, we share twice, and then we're blocked because they don't want us sharing this knowledge. But we're combatants, we're fighters, we're light warriors, and we're out spreading the message and spreading this information. And also, you guys must know that Ildi Budai is the one that has organized this intro interview with George, and hopefully she'll be joining us for the next one. Now, I say intros because George has so much research that we're never going to be able to talk about it here in one show. He just has so much. So pretty much what we're going to do is we're going to run through everything that he's got and get a good idea, come up to speed as to where he's at. And then the following shows that we'll do, we're going to break down those subjects and talk about them individually, and hopefully he can do some webinars and give us some lectures and stuff like that. So welcome, George. Thank you for joining us here at Watchers Talk.
Thank you, Omar. It's a pleasure to be on board.
So, George, like I said, you sent me a link here earlier today, and well, you sent me this link before too, but I just kind of had a brief look at it, and then I went back today and really had a closer look at it, and you just have so many books that range from just so many different subjects. And before we began the show, you said you've been researching since the 60s. Now, did I hear that right?
Yes, I'm one of those strange anomalies that when I was 5 years old, I was reading The Mountains of Pharaoh by Leonard Cottrell. And Ildi might identify the fact that when I was 6, I was composing an opera on the piano, mourning the destruction caused by the above the Aswan Dam, which is pretty strange behavior for a 5 and 6 year old.
You were writing music when you were 5, 6 years old?
I couldn't write it very well, so I just basically had to dong it onto the piano and sing with it.
Incredible, incredible. Most 5, 6-year-old kids are, they're having a hard time getting food in their mouth.
I had enough trouble trying to get other kids at school to understand paleontology and archaeology. I just could never understand why they weren't interested.
So for the people that are not familiar with you or your work, why don't you tell us who you are and how you came about to where you are today in meeting up like your research and in your life as well, because I'm sure a lot of your research reflects your life as well.
I'll start to keep it very simple. My name is George Mitrovic. I was born in a little town in Australia called Wagga Wagga, and now I live in a little town in Australia called Picton, not to be confused with Picton in Canada or Picton in New Zealand. It's a 2-hour commute to Sydney. I still work, but since 2012, I've published 18 different books, some of them quite enormous. But it doesn't just mean that I researched them since 2012. Some of these books I've been researching since 1972, 1973, and more than likely, long before that, whilst working on other things. I don't like mysteries. I don't like questions. I like to ask questions. I like to find out how things work. I like to find out, are there new theories that are needed to explain these? How we can't stick to the old paradigms with anything. We have to keep exploring. We have to keep looking differently at everything we have. And in this process, we're uncovering a history of the earth that most people don't realise exists. A history of archaeology that most people don't realise exists. Histories of science, of communications, of music. Things that maybe entrenched paradigms might not like, but it's not for us to worry about. Ours is to continue promoting knowledge. Because without knowledge, we're useless, we're dead. We might as well just be drones.
Amen, that sir. Amen.
Yeah. I've been described as a maverick scientist. I'm not a scientist, but I do a hell of a lot of research. Some of my books are up to 1,800 pages.
Wow.
Of research, because I'm rather fussy. I think I'm Aspergerish. People have said I am. I like patterns. I like finding patterns, but I like to cross-check my data. All my data comes from free sources, at least published sources. I want somebody else to put their balls on the line, pardon the expression, first with their opinions and their discoveries. Then I'll see if it matches other ones. Then I'll use it. It may be harsh, but we have to be very careful how we bring out knowledge. We can go wandering off in fairyland, or we can stick to science and mathematics. Mathematics we know as a science. Science we know as a hypothesis. That can be a concept some people find difficult to understand. But we need to discover things. I've written books from everything from how to find wormholes, and that took me from 1973 until 2012 to write all 1,730 pages of it as a hypothesis. It's attracted a bit of controversy over the years. I find it difficult to read because I've re-edited it so many times. And the funny thing with writing is you can't re-edit your own work too many times. I've written books on, one of my favourite books is When the Sky Crashed Down, which everyone, within 48 hours, oddly enough, speaking of entrenched paradigms, I had a 1.5-page diatribe appear on my Facebook page. My Amazon page. All 18 of my books are on Amazon. But didn't like my book and went on and on and on about why it didn't like my book. Because I didn't write it like a scientist. I don't write like a scientist. I didn't cover it with peer-reviewed articles. I don't write the peer-reviewed articles, so it doesn't matter to me. I present data, and I present patterns in data. And I couldn't believe how inflamed this person was. And I thought, God, that's bitten him on the arse. Pardon the expression. I hope I haven't offended anybody. That means I'm hitting a few truths here. I mentioned in that book a small discovery. So people mightn't think it's great. The second major cosmic impact with the Earth, 3,260 million years ago, as geologically dated, and that can be a very variable thing, was at Barberton in South Africa. Pretty large crater, tens of kilometres across. Amazing. Right on the Golden Diamond Belt, as usual. And as usual, you may get to understand later as you get to know more of my work. I was looking for geologic data and fill data, just to make the article on Barberton in a long list of thousands of other articles not appear too dry and boring. I don't want my books to be soporific. I don't want them to send you to sleep. It's not my purpose. I don't write coffee table books. And I noticed from other sources, other scientific sources, an interesting coincidence. 3,260 billion years ago. Remember Earth or in this case, you might not know, Earth has no oxygen. Oxygen's yet to come up for another billion years. It's basically still just a very hot ball. Or the established paradigms say it is, or was. The oldest bacterial remains that we have discovered so far, fossilized bacterial anaerobic remains, in other words, non-oxygen breathing bacteria, are at Barberton. Does that sound unusual? Massive meteor impact and the first and oldest bacterial remains. Which brings me to the second part of that book that they didn't like either. Modern study of comets and large meteoroids and asteroids is that they are rubble planets. They are masses of rubble and mud and dirt and water, ice, held together by its own inner gravitation. Perfect place for a bacteria to travel the universe.
That's right, it's hidden.
Only 70 to 80 degrees inside Celsius, nothing for a bacterium. They can live in thermal vents from volcanoes.
That's the panspermia theory, am I correct? Yeah.
Yes, but nobody had ever tied it into a single impact site, which they didn't like, but I didn't care. I believe the origin of life on our planet is the bacteria that impacted at Barberton. The rest of that book is a list of cosmic impacts, cosmic disasters, mass extinctions, right to the last one that finished 10,000 years ago and ended the Ice Age. That promoted a separate book, The Comets and Meteors That Ended the Last Ice Age. It's a simple title. It explains the death of our poor friend, the woolly mammoth. To some people, woolly mammoths probably aren't much of a thing they want to discuss. But there are certain things about the woolly mammoth which we all know of, I'm sure we do, but we might not know of, or you might not know of. Simple little things. We're talking about tens of thousands of these great beasts perishing in one moment.
That's perishing, right, they're flash frozen.
Flash frozen in streams of water mud. Brings in another small problem. They had long lips. And people say, what's it to do with mammoth lips? What are we talking about? Long lips on an elephant-like creature. Or actually, the long lips are designed to eat leaves off trees. They're the same as the Indian elephant. If you want short lips, go to Africa, eat grass on the savannah. The Siberian elephant was a temperate creature, not an ice creature.
That's right. They tell us that that entire hemisphere was covered in ice, which is all bullshit anyways.
Yes, because what happened, and I've got wonderful aerial pictures of the Earth, thank you, Mr. Google Earth, with massive craters I've drawn on them.
You can share those images. You can share those images if you like. If you scroll down, you'll see share screen, and you can take us to the images.
It'll take me a while to find the book. As you can see, there are a few sitting behind me, behind my desk. We'll get that ready for when we start doing slideshows along with what we're doing. This is more an introduction.
Yeah.
But what happened was, in the last great impacts, and there are some authors, very prominent ones, who won't discuss the matter with me, though I brought it up many years ago now. Let's say one comet came and did all this destruction. That's really weird. And it's only recently they started saying one comet came out of the heavens and that one comet is responsible for all of this stuff at the end of the last ice age.
And one comet is responsible for...
that's what they say, and that's what they're right. The funny thing is, in my research, there's a bloody lot of them at several different times between 12 and 10,000 years ago. Mass cometary streams, impact streams in the US, or former USSR, in North America, Brazil, all at the right times that people are postulating for the one comet. But it wasn't one comet. It was a mixture of different comets. What was happening? We had a major impact, and then the bits continued on as the Earth rolled to the east. More and more fragments would continue. So you end up for teardrop. You end up for major impact. Excuse me for a moment, please. We had a major impact, 10,900 BC. That's an accepted date for the cometary impact. But this impact was not the one they're talking about. Several scientists have discovered a huge impact that hit the Bahamas, or Bermuda, sorry, and the Bermuda Islands at a central uplift. If you all remember an old milk commercial from many years ago that shows milk flying up into a column when something's dropped into it, that is a meteoric central uplift.
That's
the
right.
molten matter goes up and freezes.
That's right. You see that in every crater hole on the moon, on Mars, on any other
that's Bermuda.
Yeah.
That was 1,200 kilometers across.
Wow.
A 20-kilometer across cometary or meteoric impact would devastate everything for hundreds of kilometers around. This enormous impact hit from the east because you see a stream of smaller particles heading to the northwest.
Would that be the Chesapeake Bay?
Chesapeake Bay, Sisyphus in Alaska, a whole host of them. It's a teardrop. You will see from the big one, you'll then see smaller ones, smaller ones, smaller ones, smaller ones, and they head into Siberia. As it fractured and came in at that angle.
I got you.
At that time, I talk with my hand, so you'll have to allow for it. At that time, the North Pole was based on Hudson Bay. This is where another great myth of our time occurred. But there were ice ages. The ice masses were the correct ice masses for a northern polar mass based on Hudson Bay as the North Pole. What happened with the impact is we tipped 27.5 degrees. And this is all legitimate science. But nobody bothers to join all the dots together to see what else is happening. I do. I find patterns. I join the dots.
Let me ask you really quickly. The Hudson's
please,
Bay,
I tend to rave on.
The Hudson's Bay, it appears to be an ancient and impact site. Now, whether it's a meteor or a comet, but clearly it's very rounded, and it appears to be a impact site. And when you observe the land that's around it, like Manitoba, for instance, Manitoba is, it looks like it's being shattered, as well as the Queen Elizabeth Islands in northern part of Canada. Now, what's your opinion on that? Do you think it's a part of this?
That was a large portion of the monster that had crashed into Bermuda. Remember, we're heading northwest and north.
Yeah.
So that was another fracture, another part. The aerial maps, which I've outlined in dark blue in my books, will show them far more clearly. But the amount of the impact was, it tilted the Earth 27.5 degrees. The Hudson Bay impact actually started destroying the ice masses rapidly. And that's the next part. These ice masses combined with mud and dirt and everything as the Earth tilted, because weather only stays in one spot. The coldest at the north and the south, the hottest at the equators. You tilt the Earth, the weather stays where it is. So all this ice has now moved to a temperate area that was a northern glacial mass. Sorry about the hands appearing everywhere.
It's okay.
And it's rapidly melting because it's been shattered. There are fragments flying all over the place. There are ice masses suddenly hitting the Carolinas, Virginia, areas like that, Wisconsin, Nebraska. They're forming what are called the bays, elliptical shaped shallow impact craters with high outer ridges and low inner ridges. And the reason is nothing is found in them is it is water mass. It is ice that has hit them. Ice fragments from the shattered polar mass that has moved. In the meantime, these poor mammoths and everything else in North America and Siberia are frozen because their own area of geography has moved to a colder latitude.
That's right, because the sun rays are not directly hitting the land. The sun rays are just going right over it. So, and that's we're missing the light and the heat, and everything would flash freeze because of the fact that it's a sudden tilt. Now, do you think that may have caused the precessional cycle, the wobble that we're in today, or do you think this wobble was in effect?
The wobbles change every time we have an impact, a major impact. Because remember, the Earth's like a little...
It's like a top.
It's a top. It's a little top. So every now and again, it just sort of wobbles and moves. We've had 271 Earth tilts, as far as we know, since the beginning of the Earth, for approximately 4,000 million years ago.
Now, naturally, a top would want to upright itself. So do you think that the Earth may do the same thing, go into an upright axis so that it doesn't have that extreme 25,000 year precessional cycle?
In the 271 major movements of the poles, about, if I remember rightly, at least 10 of them have been total 360s. North became south, south became north. Majority are just tilts like 10, 15, 20, 25 degrees. Because the Earth is always teetering in its orbit, and you've got to remember it's affected by the major planets, Jupiter. It's affected by the sun, so it's got their gravitational fields affecting it as well. So it's sort of sitting on a rubber band between them, which helps sort of keep it in position, if you can visualize that.
It's like teeter-totter.
It's a teeter-totter. Yeah. I like to keep things simple. I don't want to explain things in complex ways because it's boring. People don't have time.
Not too many people have time to really get into it. You just want to drop it down in layman's terms and let people disseminate the information as they wish.
Like I've had a couple of 5-star reviews on Amazon for my latest book, Amazing Archaeology, just to change the subject for a second.
I was just going to say that is you've compiled an atlas there, am I correct?
Yes.
This amazing archaeology. That is a second atlas too, if I'm correct, right? Because you also have one on UFOs and phenomenons, I believe.
Yes, phenomenons, UFOs, lake monsters, sea monsters, strange falls from the sky. I want to rewrite those ones. They need to be updated and they need to be redone again. But I've written books. As an experiment, I wrote one on how to explore North America in the pre-Columbian period if you're a Roman or a Minoan or a Viking, by using rivers, by using lakes, which were the highways. In ancient times, no one used roads. They were very rare. It was easier to cart freight by water. It was cheaper to cart freight by water. You didn't have to climb mountains and go through passes. Roads through them were only built when they needed to. Hello?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay.
I'm just sharing screen, just letting the audience see the cover.
Yeah, that's the Kindle cover. There's also another cover with the Hajar al-Hubla on it, which is the paperback cover. It's the one for Big Grey Rock. And to change the subject again, because this is an introduction to a lot of things, they haven't got the Hajar al-Hubla on this one. But when you go to Amazon US, which is the only site for some strange reason that publishes my paperbacks, you see a lot of different books, including the Hajar al-Hubla. Well, you'll have to buy the paperback copy to see it now, but actually you'll find it if you Google my name with Amazon. But as you can see, there are a lot of subjects on there. And a lot of them are atlases, because I want people to go to these sites.
Yeah.
I want them to know that, God, there's a mound in our neighbourhood. And that's another subject that tends to annoy me. Mound builders. I've got nothing against mound builders. I've got something against the term mound builders. It's demeaning.
What do you think it is?
They were pyramid builders like everybody else. You look at Cahokia. I don't know what that second book is there or what it's even doing in there, but that's Amazon for you. Yeah, I don't know what that is.
It's Daniel Mitrovic and Bill Clinton.
Yeah, that's why they've shoved it in there. We'll get rid of them. That's the joy of Amazon and the Google. You never know what you'll find. That's the fun of it. I love this age. But you look at Cahokia. Cahokia, just across the river from St. Louis in Missouri. Cahokia, if I remember right, it's in Illinois. Pardon my memory at times. I do hold a lot in there, but it's not an infallible system. Cahokia has a central pyramid that is larger in mass than the Great Pyramid of Egypt, of Giza. We can't call that a mound. That's not a mound. That is a pyramid. And there were other pyramids around it. These were trading cities. They traded on the Mississippi. They traded on the Missouri. They traded on the other major river systems. This culture has been demeaned so much by 19th and 20th century archaeology. Mound builders, they're pyramid builders. And to give you an idea, in the last two pluvial periods, when these cultures were at their zenith, and a pluvial period is a wet period, we had one between the 10th and the 14th century in the Middle Ages, and we had one again between about the 3rd century BC and the 4th century AD. Much warmer, much wetter periods. But that's other things we need to discuss. Do you know that you can travel by ship from the Gulf of Mexico to just north of Chicago and straight into the Great Lakes and do the reverse?
I had no idea.
That is amazing, because you finally get to the Des Moines River after going up the Illinois River, off the Mississippi River, and now you're 4 kilometres from under the Great Lakes. 4 kilometres in a wet period with higher sea levels. We're in the same position. There's the Hajar al-Hubla.
That's the same thing that we were taught in grade 4 and 5 when we were learning the Canadian history and John Abbott and Mackenzie River, and how the Northwest Territories in Alberta and British Columbia were mapped and also discovered was by canoe and
Yes.
boats. I just thought I'd throw that in there really quick.
No, that's good, because it's how people have done it for millennia. The highways, lakes, and rivers. No, sorry, the lakes and rivers and seas. I'm getting excited. The highways. I mean, people don't realize. That's for Hajar al-Hubla. It's just off from the terrace of the Temple of Baalbek in the Bekaa Valley in Lebanon. It's regarded as one of the biggest stones in the world.
Is that where that big stone is that weighs like 1,200 tons or
That's
something
for Big
like that?
Stone.
The Baalbek stone,
That's
I believe it's called.
That's for Hajar al-Hubla, the stone of a pregnant woman. She's still in her quarry, waiting to go to the terrace itself, which has her 3 sisters in it that have already been raised 20 metres. It's not just a case of digging it out, it's how the hell do you move it? I mean, you look at normal archaeology, you look at the Great Pyramid of Giza, they're 2.5 ton each.
How do you suppose the ancients cut and moved them? There's a lot of speculation out there of anti-gravity and even teleportation and some using sound.
A lot of theories.
What do you think it is in your opinion?
Davidovits says that the stones in the Great Pyramid of Giza were cast. But there are the quarries for the stones across the other side of the Nile. So it sort of defeats that premise. Nothing against Davidovits. It's a great theory. We look at 2.5 ton. 2.5 ton is not a heavy stone. Not when you look at 1,200 ton, which is a Hajar or Hubla, or some of the larger stones in Sacsayhuaman in Peru and elsewhere. The Egyptians said they used sleds, and people said, how do they get sleds across the desert? Well, recent discoveries which I published years ago, well, I seem to be ahead of people for some strange reason. And once again, we get back to water. There are canals leading up to the major pyramids. You only need a foot of water for a raft. And that's how they moved obelisks, and that's how they moved stones. How they actually got them up on the pyramids, well, I'm buggered. But they got them to them pretty easy by floating them, which is how a lot of cultures moved their massive stones and things.
You would just have to learn the currents to make sure that your ship doesn't topple over.
Yeah, but also, visualize this. 4,500 years ago, the raising of the Great Pyramid, according to a lot of the, a lot of the data, was a pluvial period. The Sahara Desert had not dried out.
That's right. It was still.
It had not suffered deforestation by Roman agricultural techniques in North Africa, which caused a lot of the deforestation. There was still a lot of lakes.
I'd like to run another theory by you, but right after you're done.
The pyramids were surrounded by grass and lakes and canals because it was a wet period. River levels were higher, including the Niles, including the Mediterraneans. Everything was on a level where you could use water to get things to the pyramids, to get these stones there. Excuse me. Yes, I always like to listen to theories.
So, yeah, I'm here. So what I'm thinking is, not quite sure which age we would be talking about here, but back in, let's say just back in time, the jet stream that is over Central Africa right now was where Egypt is today. And with that jet stream, of course, it was bringing moisture. So in antiquity, due to that moisture, the entire Egyptian peninsula and the surrounding countries were lush and green and filled with vegetation. But Central Africa, which didn't have the jet stream, was a desert, like the Sahara is today. But something happened.
Like Chad.
But something that's right. Something happened that that caused the jet stream to shift a couple of thousand miles further south, which of course brought drought and destruction for the Egyptians and that North Africa, the entire continent up there.
No, I agree with that fully.
That may be due to a comet impact, which knocked the Earth into a different axis, and the weather changed, and the jet stream dropped, and then possibly due to the precessional cycle as well. So as the Earth wobbles, the jet stream, just goes north and south, and at this particular point, it's in Central Africa. So when we get into, let's say, Pisces, when it's the age of water, then possibly the jet stream may shift further north, and creating the entire area green again. Because we have to remember that below the desert, there's more fresh water than all the lakes combined in the world, and
rivers, lakes, you name it.
Yeah, and it's made of soapstone. So all the years of rain, that porous stone that's just sucked up the water, and beneath it, it's a huge reservoir of fresh water.
Yes, because what happens is as the Earth slowly tilts and wobbles, remember, not all movements of the Earth are sudden. They're quite often quite subtle, as you said. Its isotherm is moving up and down very slowly, the same as the monsoon isotherm over India. And it's dependent on weather conditions and temperature conditions of the Arabian Sea. If it's cooler, less rain. The same as La Nina and El Nino off the coast of South America.
Yeah, that's right. In the Pacific.
We have less rain.
Pacific as well. That's the hot and the cold.
Over the Humboldt Current.
Yeah.
And that causes droughts in Australia, or wet periods. So yes, we've got all these variables all across the face of the planet. Actually, I have been working on another book while I've been working on a few books. I tend to write 2 or 3 at the same time, which is weird considering I work a 65-hour week anyway in the city. Mm-hmm. But that's just how I do things. But that's the great meteoric impacts of 3,300 BC, 2,500 BC, and 1,600 BC. They're not very well publicized, but I'm still doing research on them because by the time you get to 1,600 BC, it's the most confusing mess you've ever seen in research anywhere. Mainly because the Egyptian king lists are out, the Mediterranean king lists of different cultures are all out by 300 years. Everything has this 300-year error factor. That was because around 15 to 1600 BC, we have the sudden collapse of civilization around the Mediterranean. Mm-hmm. It took 300 years to start recovering. At the same time, we have the rise of monotheism for one moment with Akhenaten. But it wasn't just Akhenaten. It's the Hebron or Hebrews developed monotheism at the same time, as did quite a few cultures, including Mitanni and others in the Eastern Mediterranean. Everyone suddenly became monotheistic, or a belief in one God instead of the usual multiples of lots. Mm-hmm. The interesting thing is, in this period, we had a major cometary event called an Arten comet. One single massive comet that hovered for an extended period over the Earth before crashing into it again, or its fragments thereof, hitting Sinai, hitting Arabia, hitting northern Egypt, crashing into the Mediterranean, and part of my new theory to come up, actually causing the Santorini volcanic eruption by piercing the Earth. And then the eruption started, and the tidal wave from it, and the death, and the clouds, and the rain of fire, and the rain of barach, as Hebrew literature calls it, the stones from the sky, all in this same period. That's a difficult concept to come upon.
Now, when you say the Aten comet, are you getting the reference from that orb that we see above a lot of the Egyptian glyphs?
Yes, because they already had a symbol for the sun, Ra. Mm-hmm. They had a different symbol, the winged disc for the Aten comet.
Yeah.
They didn't need a second one for the sun. The Aten comet was not the sun. The Aten comet was a new god in the sky that was bringing destruction. In Egypt, the Aten comet was called Sekhmet. Sekhmet, the goddess of the flowing mane, the lion-headed goddess. And interesting parts of those myths of Sekhmet, the comet, is that Sekhmet was said to have crashed into the sea outside the Pillars of Hercules, destroyed a civilization whose survivors became the people of the sea who tried to conquer Egypt in the reign of Ramesses II.
That's
and also
right. Now,
Troy and other cities.
Now, might that be the case for the creation of the Mediterranean Sea and the Dead Sea? Because we know that Mediterranean and the Dead Seas were created suddenly. It was
several times.
Yeah,
that's happened a few times.
And at one time it was dry, hence the cities that were in the valleys on the sea floor today.
Yes. No, there have been a few floodings of the Dead Sea and the Mediterranean Sea. 5,600 BC years ago. I know we're jumping from point to point, but that's the nature of this at the moment. We had the flooding of what was then called the Euxine Lake. The Euxine Lake is now called the Black Sea. Mm-hmm. It was flooded by the Mediterranean Sea. That 5,600 BC. At the same time, we suddenly have the rise of civilization in Eastern Europe. The rise of civilization in Turkey. secondaries, other civilizations, but already had previous civilizations. But civilizations come and go, which is the problem.
Mm-hmm.
Like Catalhuyuk and others. I mean, Göbekli Tepe was much, much earlier. So we don't want to bring Göbekli Tepe into the flooding of the Black Sea period. So this extreme sudden raising of the Mediterranean floods the Black Sea and related areas around it. The Black Sea is unique now in that the Bosporus still has two currents that run against each other. One underneath flowing from the Black Sea and one above flowing into the Black Sea. And the water at the bottom of the Black Sea is anaerobic. It's oxygen free.
That's right. Nothing lives
Everything
down
is preserved perfectly.
there. Mm-hmm.
So we're always having massive changes. Excuse me for a second. I'm still recovering from the thing you probably had, but we're in separate continents. So the main thing to think of is everything is in constant change. And I keep changing my books and keep writing different books because they're always new, fascinating subjects. Do you have any questions? I just need to rest my voice for a second.
Yeah, no, I'm listening. I've been talking just as much, probably not as much as you have been, but it's fascinating to listen to you. Now, you were saying about Göbekli Tepe, which is far earlier. Now, in your opinion, how far back would you put Göbekli Tepe?
The latest studies are approximately 12,000 years ago, or the end of the Younger Dryas, 10,900 BC again.
Now,
which date comes up.
Do you agree with Graham Hancock's theory of the Younger Dryas impact?
Well, he only mentions one. I've already written in my books that there are lots.
Mm-hmm.
It was an earlier impact, part of an impact stream. He doesn't mention the Russian impacts from the same period. He doesn't mention the Brazilian impacts from the same period. There were various groups of impacts over a 2,000-year period. That's the problem. That's why I like working with maps. That's why I like looking at images, because you find patterns. Lots of different patterns, which are quite horrifying at times. I agree that, yes, there was massive change during the Younger Dryas, but there was massive change 32,000 BC. There were massive change 15,000 BC as different cometary impacts or meteoric impacts hit the Earth. But this was a particularly big cycle.
Mm-hmm.
I like Graham's work. I find it quite enjoyable.
Yeah, me too.
But I tend to find that some people tend to write things long after I've already written them. But I tend to write the next step ahead, which is numerous impacts, numerous survivals.
That's why they call those people pioneers.
They call me lots of things. If you knew the story of how hard it's been to get my publications published without something horrendous happening to somebody somewhere along the line that was going to help me at the time, you'd probably run away now. But as I said before, when we were talking privately, we have to disseminate knowledge. This at the moment may sound like a jumbled mass of conversations on a host of different themes. But most people don't realize there is this host of different themes. There is this host of jumbled patterns which are actually parts of massive wholes.
That's right. Everything is connected. All of it is connected.
With a segue onwards, let's go back to 65 million BC. We all know that date. The apparent extinction of the dinosaurs. Now, we'll say apparent. But it is believed to be the apparent extinction of the dinosaurs. I looked at that period while I was writing my book on meteoric and cometary impacts, the world history of them. Yeah, Chicxulub is a nice little crater. It's not particularly big. Offhand, 10, 12 Ks, I think. Yeah, it would cause a major problem in Central America. But you should see the size of the Cuba crater next to it from the same period. It covers the entire Bahamas almost. That would have caused worldwide problems. But geologists disagree on whether it occurred, whether it didn't occur, when it occurred. You find and when it occurred.
And when. Do you
Yeah,
buy
and
the
when.
65 million year date? Because we see the megalith structures around the world which depict dinosaurs on them. So the either humans were walking around here 65 million years ago, or their date is inconsistent with facts.
I love geological dating. I wish I could use geological dating variants in my books, because you'll get a site that says, this meteor hit this part of southern Uzbekistan in 1,214 million BC with an error factor of 500 million years. Excuse me? What the hell is that?
Yeah. And
what is an error factor of 500 million years? I'm not going to use that. So in my book, I write each date they prescribe for each apparent impact. So I might have that same impact referred to 5 times in that book, but you suddenly find at one of those particular postulated impact times, you've got 6, 7, 8, or 9 of them in a row. And you suddenly realize, bingo, we have another impact stream. Just by looking at maps, just by comparing the data, just by looking at how things happened, you look for patterns and bugger geological variants.
Now, these guys that are given the dates and give you a variance of 500 million years, to me, that's taking a wild guess and then sugarcoating it and making it look pretty and making it sound scientific by using big words and such to confuse people.
Let me get back to another subject completely now, Omar. I'm loving this conversation, by the way.
Yeah, me too.
I hope I haven't sent too many people to sleep yet.
We got a good audience happening here. They got a nice talk going here.
It's a fast ride and it's a rough ride, but it's well worth going on. In my major book, which I rarely talk about anymore, Gateways to the Gods, that took me many years. Gateways to the Gods. It's only available as an ebook. It's 1,700 pages. It was based on mapping of anomalous phenomena across the face of the Earth from 1800 to 1977. You know, UFOs, lake monster sightings, spontaneous combustion, everything that was anomalous with 3 separate witnesses or physical trace evidence or both from 1800 to 1977. The biggest gaggle of anomalous data you have ever seen in your life. And I got latitudes and longitudes for it and did it all in chronological order. I wanted to see if there was anything to it. Because what happened, the reason I started looking at this stuff in the early 70s was I'd look at a site and here's a group of people and they're talking to Orthon from Venus on one side of a mountain. I thought, oh, okay, they're hippies, they're stoned. Who cares? Other side of the mountain, same time, almost same place, they're seeing hairy hominoids running around the place. Excuse me? And nearby there's a lake monster, but it was only seen for 10 years. Then it was never seen again. But hang on. What is the constant here? What is the constant? The constant is time and space. So what are we going to do with this concept of time and space? Let's get every bit of data we've ever found from legitimate sources, from 3 separate sources, with physical trace phenomena, and let's just start writing them down. And it was a big job. And getting their latitudes and longitudes. And then transferring all of that to maps. What sort of maps? Grid paper. At that time, there's very little in the way of computers, or nothing that I could operate or afford. And so I started putting dots on maps. My constant across the top at a graph was 180 west to 180 east and a double 0 in the middle, because you got 0 to -1 and 0 to +1. The constant down is time. What I found, it was amazing. What I found was, just from this data, and it's used to amass and collate, sine waves. You were talking about sine waves earlier. Sine waves. Running down the map, running down the graph. Big ones, little ones, very long ones, other ones, and I thought, this is ridiculous. If all of this stuff is just illusion, imagining, schizophrenic viewpoints, Stone's dreams, why the hell is it creating a physical, mathematical, possible pattern? I didn't have the skills to analyze this pattern, but I was referred to a prominent plasma physicist. We spent, Christopher Illett, brilliant man, and this was in 93, 94. I spent weeks entering my data and its latitudes and longitudes only, not the phenomena, into a very basic computer system. And he did a reversed exponential decay curve on the data from 1800 to 1977. The sine curves exist. The sine curves that all of this anomalous data occurred on existed. Now, that's pretty amazing. And it got better. The sine curves were similar to the periodicities of the major planets of the solar system. We thought, hang on, this is getting very, very odd. And then we noticed another sine curve at 505 astronomical units from the Earth, according to our new graphing system, which we deduced would be a trans-Plutonian planet at 505 astronomical units. An astronomical unit is the distance from the Earth to the Sun. Yeah. We're not saying 505 with an error factor of 100 either way. 505, because this thing was actually going at times between Uranus and Neptune and wobbling Uranus's orbit. And no one had ever explained that. And this is merely a mathematical postulate based on anomalous data.
Might that be the 12th planet that Zecharia Sitchin
That's the 12th planet.
Spoke about, and it's an elliptical
Persephone,
orbit?
or Proserpine, or whatever. All planets have got elliptical orbits.
This one's got that huge 3,600-year orbit.
No, not that long. That's pretty big, though. We never deduced its orbit. The data wouldn't show that. It would just show that it was there.
Yeah.
At a 550, sorry, it was a 505-year orbit, because that's how we did the astronomical data. And here's the physicist, I'm the researcher. But the main discovery was where these sine curves on this map occurred on Earth was where these anomalous happenings were occurring. UFOs, lake monsters, hairy hominoids, spontaneous combustion, falls of frogs, you name it, it was on there. And they kept moving because the intersections of the bigger and smaller sine waves kept moving as well. Everything kept moving. So what have we got here?
Yeah, I'm wondering the same.
We have people seeing things. Yeah, okay. People see things all the time. We see things that are burning people, leaving footprints, leaving landing marks, running through the woods, howling and screaming, or swimming around frantically. But where are they? Is this a limited period of existence? So I thought, okay, maybe dimensions are changing, or we're finding entrance warps to other dimensions. It's a valid theory. And these things are just coming in and out from it. You know, they've hit the wrong turn on Alpha Centauri, hit a wormhole, and hello Earth. And they're here. And then 10 minutes later or half an hour later, they're gone again. And I thought, okay, how would they disassemble? Is there a disassembly between wormholes? How do they recreate if there's disassembly? No. They would require technology which we don't have, and I don't think anyone else would create. Beyond my understanding, maybe I'm wrong. So what exactly is happening here at these junction points that occur for a limited period? Sometimes a few minutes, sometimes a few weeks, but usually not for very long.
Mm-hmm.
The theory, the postulate came along to me, and some people don't like it, but I don't really care. It's a postulate which came from the mathematics. It has to be logical. It has to be repeatable. It has to be deducible, unlike what people were seeing. Could it be that we have matter? We have 5 states of matter. There's solids. We all know about them. Hit your head on one, you know it's there. We've got liquids. Yes, you can put your head in it. We've got gases. They can envelop us. We've got plasma. Plasma can be produced in the middle of a nuclear explosion, where we have almost total liberation of the electronic bonding from the core. And then we got the 5th state of matter. Most people don't know about that one. Very simple concept. It's the quasar vacuum.
I heard
the
about
quasar
it
vacuum. Sorry.
I
The
heard about
quasar
that
vacuum
once. Sorry, go ahead.
is where the electrons are vibrating so fast and the atoms are vibrating so fast they have lost their magnetic bond completely. They are free matter. There are no atoms as such. It is just total free random matter. That is the quasar vacuum. Could it be, with these different observations, that people suddenly arrive in these particular areas while they're occurring? They cannot comprehend what is actually happening. Their brain, to stop them going mad, converts what they're seeing into something they can recognize.
Mm-hmm.
So they are actually creating a Madonna sitting in a tree, which is there for a limited period, or a Bigfoot, or a sea monster, or Orthon from Venus coming, or the Greys, or whoever. Could they be creating these as a self-defense when confronted with the impossible? Because we'll now add another part to this. One of the things I noticed about ancient civilizations, and especially their religious structures, they liked moving them. Look at the Aztec and the Maya. Every 56 years, move it. A lot of expense, a lot of time.
Why do you think the 56 years? What's so symbolic?
Well, they were working on the cycle of Venus relative to the Earth. They're commemorating the last time the Earth was destroyed by a massive comet or impact.
Mm-hmm.
And it's in 56-year cycles they deduced.
I see.
Which is a common cycle worldwide. But why did they keep moving them? Why not just keep the temple in the same spot and repeat the rituals every 56 years there?
Yeah.
They believed the places of power moved. So let us imagine.
Kind of like the poles. Kind of like the poles. The poles always constantly moving.
Yes, and the same as these points where matter changes on the Earth.
Mm-hmm.
These were what the earliest shamans and religious people probably thought were places of magic, because they could create things there. They could do healing there. Imagine if you got total free matter. Put a person in there, see if you can heal them, because you can change matter itself at these points. Yes, it sounds total lunacy, but it's all based on mathematics.
But you can do it.
It can be done.
With sound.
Imagine what a power source people wouldn't want to get to know about. The same things. Like another side view of my data was a lot of these events earthquakes occur on the same sites. But it's a minor thing compared to that. I don't want to play a book based on, yes, you can stop your insurance on Tokyo for one day at this period because it's guaranteed to go in smoke.
Yeah.
No, we've got to look at the big picture. But also there's a paranoid side of things that says, are there other entities beyond our comprehension in the multiverse? And Hawkins' last great book, as discovered recently, was going to be on the multiverse.
That's right.
And I've been writing about the bloody multiverse for years and mapping it.
Now, what is the multiverse? Now, a lot of people have different ideas about
the multiverse. Is every universe imaginable. You could even run it to an infinite point of, if there's one atom different in a universe to another universe, they become the first two steps of a multiverse. You have one electron difference again. That's a multiverse. It's apparently infinite. That's a mathematical way of looking at it. Otherwise, if it was one with only 2 or 3 electrons difference, it's a different multiverse. These things had to be continuous. Mm-hmm. They had to be based on an original, eternal basis. The multiverse could still be one thing. It's complex mathematics. But it can still be a multiverse. It's a bit like Schrodinger's cat, which we all read of. Well, most of us have read of, or at least joked about, and watched witty memes on the internet about. Is it in the box when it's in the box and the box is closed? Well, it's a bit like the quasar vacuum. Whereabouts is it? Is it on that side or this side, or is there no side? Mm-hmm. It could be on all 3. So that would make the multiverse one universe. It just keeps bending in on itself all the time. Because we only have our own apparent senses. The mathematics of the multiverse could be totally different.
Multiverse could also fall into the different dimensional worlds that we consistently live in. The different densities, the 3rd density, the 4th, the 5th, the 6th, 7th, they would all be.
There are a lot of explanations.
Multiverses as well, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Or is it that we have created multiverses just from our own individual consciousness, and this is all a great big illusion? Mm-hmm. But I believe is my universe multiverse. It just goes on. But I'm only interested in the ones I can draw maps for to help us get around them. So at least we can explore them.
Yeah.
Imagine traveling through the multiverse, not having to use time and space. You just go to the right wormhole and, well, we're not quite sure where we're going, but like early explorers, you're going to find out by going. Cross that galactic ocean, so to say. I think Kurt Vonnegut mentioned something similar to that years ago. And it's been many, many years since I last read any fiction. I think that I was about 8 or 9. Or thereabouts. I think I was reading the Philadelphia Experiment at the same time by Allende. That's a different book in its own right. So, yes, we do have a lot of topics to cover.
Now, before we run out of time here, George, what I wanted to talk to you about was what I found of interest was your UFOs and the Atlas in History from 1800 to 1977. Now, that's a pretty in-depth book. So can you tell me a bit more about that book?
Okay, the book on UFOs was created from this anomalous data list that this is Gateways to the Gods. I thought, I'll write a book on UFOs, saying I've got hundreds of thousands of them here anyway, and list them. And as I said, I like lists. But instead of from 1948, the apparent beginning of the flying saucer age with the Arnold sightings, I thought, let's find a way of not having the usual excuses for, no, it was an earthquake, or it was something else flying around, or an aeroplane. Let's start at 1800. No aeroplanes, no rocket ships, no satellites. And you start, it's amazing the different flaps, even in the 19th century. But the funny thing is, once again, a lot of the phenomena to the observers, especially in the 1897 airship flap over the western seaboard and south of the United States, the 1897 UFO flap the object being seen is always more advanced than the technology of the day. But it wasn't discs. It was strange dirigibles with big propellers that actually couldn't fly if you built them. Steam-powered technology coming down from the sky, or it appeared to be that way. Once again, we have the creation of phenomena. Once again, the human brain is saying, I have to identify this as something I can understand, so I'm just going to move it a few steps forward from what I can understand now. So it wasn't until the 40s, the 1940s, that we started getting the traditional UFO in its long, cigar, round, pie shape. Yes, know it. Every shape on Earth. Then by the 60s and 70s, they were triangular, they were square. They are always changing. The observations are, oh, there's one of my graphs on the screen now. And that's just a rough drawn graph.
This is the graph that you were talking about earlier?
Yeah, one of the graphs.
Yeah.
That had led me to believe that there is a pattern to all of his data. And as you can see, there are patterns all through that thing.
Yeah, I see them right away.
Christopher Illett determined using the reverse exponential decay curve, so that all of these data from 1800 to 1977 can be flattened out and actually shown to be occurring in repetitive patterns. If that isn't repetitive, I don't know what it is.
Yeah, because they almost seem like they're clustered in a line, like right here.
Clustering. Look at the lines.
Like right here, it's a straight line. And then right here, there's a circular motion, big cluster right here. There's going across right here. And even these green, they have that spiral as the way the Earth
moves. The spiral. But the thing is, those lines, the horizontal lines are the clusters. The other lines are still sort of clusters. But the horizontal lines, like the top line, I think, is 1948. And you can suddenly see the massive stuff that suddenly appeared, the number of sightings.
Might that be due to the atomic tests that the Earthlings were involved in?
I think it affected the Earth a lot. Yes.
Opened up some sort of portal that really set the alarms off for everyone else, the cosmic community?
It could have, but really an atomic test on a small planet in a remote solar system at the edge of the Milky Way, I don't think that's a great concern to a civilization on the other side of the multiverse.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe there's someone closer. Maybe it was opening portals to the next dimension too close to us. Because remember, there's no time or space in dimensions between them. They're both here. Who knows what damage might have been caused. But if you look further down the list, you've got other clusters. These are well before 1948. So we don't know what causes the clusters, but they occur. 1897 was a huge one. Unfortunately, I don't have any copies of these left. The typical author, several years ago, I got very annoyed and burnt a lot of them.
Oh, no.
Yeah, that's what you do. Because I couldn't get any sense, I couldn't get any proper mathematical sense out of it. Because the mathematics is too much. And I'm not a mathematician. And that's the annoying part. Once you reduce it to a pattern, it's visible. And hopefully somebody will come wandering along one day and we'll work out how to map the thing forever. Because it's all repeatable phenomena. That's why it wasn't the phenomenon itself. It was the important part. It was the time and space.
Is that possibly why history repeats itself? Because it's a pattern.
Why everything repeats itself. Yeah. I mean, everything is in constant motion, constant movement. And between the multiverses as well.
Do you have a website, George?
Yes, I have. I'd have to find its address again, but most people just put George Mitrovic in inverted commas into Google and it comes up. And I've got my Amazon page, which has got a lot on it. And I also have a Facebook author page.
These are some of the titles. I'll just quickly take the viewers through. Let's start here at the top. This is your Amazon page that we are currently surfing.
Isn't Hajar al-Habla beautiful?
Let me. I will paste the link here for you guys as soon as I stop sharing screen. There's a lot of interesting books here, and I would love to read each and every single one of them. So you guys should definitely, after the show here, come to George's page here on Amazon and have a look and read some of the descriptions of the books and buy some books. There's nothing wrong with reading. So make sure you guys do that. So we're coming towards the end of our talk here, George. It's been quite interesting and a pleasure to meet you and talk to you. And we definitely, like we were saying earlier on, this is more of an intro so that our viewers can get to see you and get a little understanding of what you're into and what type of research and books that you write. So next time we bring you back, we'll pick a subject and then we'll just rip that apart and try to learn as much about it as we possibly can.
Excellent stuff. It's very hard in a preview to go through everything. It can lead to total brain meltdown at times, but unfortunately I do a lot of research and a lot of different subjects, and I'm very fussy about them.
It's fortunate for us that Ildi directed you in our direction here. She messaged me about a week and a half ago. I think, no, maybe it was 2 weeks ago, something like that. And she asked me if I ever heard of you, and I was like, no, I have not. And she's like, oh, well, okay. And then she got back to me a couple of days later, and she's like, you definitely have to get George on the show, so give me a date. And so we came up with a date, and she's like, no, he has a day job. He can only be weekends. So I was like, oh, okay, well, that's cool. But you know what I found as of late, George, is I've been doing a lot of talks with people in Australia. And I find that really encouraging. And as well, it's nice to see that I'm making so many friends down there. And it's also nice to see that this movement that's happening all over the world is very strong in Australia. And there's
we're a frontier country.
Yeah, there's a lot of researchers, a lot of authors, a lot of great ideas, and a lot of science coming from people in Australia, and you happen to be one of them, and along with Evan and Stephen Strong and many others. Are you familiar with Evan and Stephen Strong's work?
I've had a quick look at him. Unfortunately, I'm usually too busy writing my own when I get to work. If that makes any sense, I only get an hour in the evening to work on my books.
You've cut yourself to a limit now since you've overwritten, boy.
No, I'm working on Mysteries of the Pacific at the moment, because people don't realize the Pacific Ocean is littered with fortresses and built in stone and cities and wonderful pyramids and structures you never hear about this time they were told about, complete with pickies.
That sounds fascinating. Are you going to include the Bermuda Triangle in that book?
Not in the Pacific, no. It's a bit far to the left.
Oh yeah, what am I talking about? Not the Bermuda Triangle.
The Japan Triangle.
That's right, the Devil's Triangle.
No, I'm only sticking to archaeology in this one because people don't know about it, and I think it's nice to see what we've got in our local area that overseas no one knows about, and in Australia no one knows about. And you know, there's some lovely ruins like Nan Madol and some of the ruins on Tonga, and then they go on and on and on. And I'm a bit of a a research junkie. I'll just trawl every single text I can find, and I tend to buy them. That's why I still work, and to stay alive, of course. To buy all these books that annoy my wife because I keep buying them, because I like to have the sources I work from. But, you know, I want to see it in print. I want to have it in my bookcase. I mean, I've now got a 2-story library in my barn.
Oh, nice. You lucky guy.
My wife had it made for me. And it's full, and there are books all over the place.
She sounds fantastic to support you.
She's
like
a
this.
wonderful, wonderful, brilliant woman.
Wonderful. That's very, very nice to hear. Hello, if you can hear me.
Hello.
So we are hitting the end of our show here, guys. And so I'm just going to quickly close this out and set a date with George so that we have him on next time. And maybe in the comments, you guys can leave on which subject you'd like to hear George talk to us about.
That's a great idea.
Yeah, so throw that in there, and I'll come back and continue to visit the comments over the course of next couple of days, and then we'll find a subject, and then we'll have you back on, and we'll talk about that, George. How does that sound?
Sounds excellent.
So
because you realise I still can go wandering off, but
that's fine. That's every guest does that, and you know, I find the only way you stick on track is when you're doing a slide webinar presentation, which kind of forces you to stay on topic. But otherwise, it's perfectly natural, and it's a great talk too. Hence the name Watchers Talk, right? We're talking about a subject.
Yeah, excellent, love it.
We're going to take off and talk about other things. So before we take off, where can people get a hold of you if they want to send you a friend's request or follow your page?
Just Facebook.
Okay.
Or go to my author page, George Mitrovic Author, on Facebook. They haven't stopped it yet, so.
Yeah, we'll post the links in the comments so people can come and find you and pick your brain.
Why not? There's a lot to pick at.
Yeah, just man, you got a lot of deep research, and I'm definitely going to pick your brain. I'm going to have Ildi on here next time with us.
Oh, great.
And that's even going to be it's going to be even better because we're going to both pick your brains.
I go into withdrawal near the end of a book when I'm writing and researching them because I think, oh no, I've got to find another one. I've got to keep writing them.
He drives me crazy.
Oh, Margaret just said he drives me crazy.
So
but it has to be done.
We are going to close the show out, guys, and I just tossed this a tour back up on here just to refresh your guys' memory. Is coming up in November of 2018, and this is through Mimo Tours, Ildi Budai from Forgotten Origin, Journeys Through Egypt, and this tour is called Egypt Hidden Treasures Tour. For more detail, please get a hold of Ildi, or you can even message me, and I can forward that message off to Ildi, and she will be more than happy to get back to you with any information. I'm sure she has the itinerary, everything already done. So like I said in the beginning of the show, I will post this PDF in the comments, and also we will put it in our group Watchers. And please, please, please go and share this and get the word out, and let's get a big group together to go and visit and explore and have a fun time in Egypt. And what's going on with us here in the next couple of days? I believe tomorrow evening I have a young man with me. He's 14, 15 years old. His name is Ark. He loves science, wants to be a scientist, and he has some great ideas on free energy. So we're going to have him on tomorrow evening. So you guys come and join that, listen to a kid talk, and give us some ideas, because these kids are pretty smart. And, you know, we got left hanging onto the bag. Now they get left hanging onto the bag, and it's really up to them to clean it up because they've got the technology. So join us tomorrow with that. And of course, we will have some updates coming up for you guys, like in our Talking Egypt series and also in our Shaping Planet series. And of course, my name is Omar. I was your host here this evening with my guest, George Mitrovic. Thank you very much, George. And thank you to everyone who joined us, everyone who commented, and everyone who shared our stream. Much love from us here at Watchers Talk. Remember, be nice, play nice, and tomorrow morning when you go to buy a coffee, buy someone a coffee behind you and tell the teller to pass it forward and see how far that line goes, and maybe we can help raise our vibrations and our frequencies. So remember, you're the seed of consciousness in your community. So we have a responsibility to help awaken people and disseminate information and uncover our true history, our true past, and find out where we're going. Because if we don't know where we come from, guys, we have no idea where we're going, and that's kind of the problem right now, and we are in big, big trouble. All right, my friends, good night, much love. Thank you for your support, and we'll see you next time.